You know, we should not underestimate the power shift that's happening. If you look at ChatGPT and the agents the agents of customers, where customers themselves can go agentic and look at products and compare them, see pricing and how it fits them. This is a huge democratization power shift towards the customer.
I'm joined once again by Frans Riemersma, founder of MartechTribe and co-creator of the MartechMap, together with Scott Brinker. If you listen to earlier episodes, you know Frans has a rare ability to make sense of the complex. Today we're diving into something you recently posted about, Frans, that got a lot of attention, the Agentic Stack. Welcome, Frans.
Thank you so much for having me, Morten, once again. Last time was in the Dutch mountains or the dunes or whatever you want to call it. This time from the Swiss Alps. So, yeah, happy to join you in Norway remotely.
Yeah, it was a bit more windy and icy today than I thought it would be. So we'll hopefully we'll be able to do this before we freeze to, yeah.
It's cold. It's minus 16 over here.
Minus 16. Okay. So, but you know, like they say on the weather reports here, it's -3, but it feels like -20. So, yeah.
That.
And it kind of feel like that today because I think it's -5 or something, really, but yeah. But anyway, really happy to have you back. So before we take a closer look at the Agentic Stack model that we're going to talk about, I just wanted to say that I will leave a link to it below in this description section so that people can find it and, you know, if they want to take a closer look at it. So Frans, let's start at the beginning. Can you walk us through the different layers of this model from the bottom and up?
Yes, gladly. So it's actually sparked by the last report I did with Scott Brinker on Martech for 2026, where we found out that AI is not so much replacing SaaS and software, it's basically augmenting it and also creating agents on its own. So this brings us to a very important architectural question. How do you combine the two? Because they're different creatures, you know. SaaS is rule-based, if then else, whereas AI is more language-driven with different outcomes. And if you put one prompt 10 times in the same dialog box, you will get, I don't know, 8, 9 similar questions and one odd, one out. And you go like, okay. So it's probabilistic AI and SaaS is deterministic, rule-based. Now, how do you combine the two? Because people are combining the two. You know, if you have a lead qualified, you want to put it in a bucket. That's an if then else rule. You don't want to go probabilistic on putting a lead in a bucket. So that is the thing. That is why we started thinking, how can you put this all together? So we know a stack, SaaS stack, Martech stack, but now we're adding an AI layer. And that's why I called it the Agentic Stack. So to combine the two. So far, so good?
Yes. If you want to explain the layers, Frans, how would you do that?
If you look at it from a distance, really from a distance, everything is built on hyperscalers. So those are your storage, you know, in the cloud services. Also LLMs provided by the big tech. We all know them. And that is the foundation. And you as a company start to decide, okay, which ones of those are we going to use? How are we going to train them? That's the foundation. What we still have is, of course, your Martech stack. Deterministic, your CRM, your marketing automation, your composable CDP, on top of those hyperscalers. These two layers you buy. There's a third layer in the bottom, which is still deterministic, which is talking about building your own software. And this has been a reality for a long time. You build your own stuff like a product configurator, a price calculator, or a customer portal. So this is all stuff that you build within your own deterministic stack layer, which is the first big chunk and the basis, your foundation of your entire agentic stack. So then we go into the AI layer, the agentic layer, which is the top layer, the second one. Again, that one is divided into 3 layers. It starts with what I call the intent model layer. Sounds a bit fancy, but it's nothing else than you use LLMs to train it according to your company, rules, legislation, compliance, brand, guidelines, etc. That is very important. That is what we see happening more and more. And based on that, and this is built. This is not bought. You use your LLM from a hyperscaler and then start building your own stuff. Then the next level is you work on, you buy AI agents. There are more and more SaaS-like AI agents coming up, subscription-based, that are mostly out of the box and you can use it like that. Do you see? So what happens then is that the next step at the top is where you start building your own AI agents. So it's all the time buy, build. And it's not either or. There's nothing anymore out of the box, enterprise-wide. No, it's really something you can use in combination with each other. And before we continue, I want to show you something. Somebody wants to say hello.
Oh, what have you? I think
There we are.
there we are. Yeah. Oh my God.
That's the Matterhorn. So if you
Not
feel like...
Edison at all.
It's a
This is just
beautiful
from a
view, yes.
fjord.
I love the fjords too, man. Yeah. So if you feel like Toblerone, then you know why.
I'm gonna save it. Thanks.
Well, that's the I think, and what is interesting, we hear a little bit less speak about stack, but I think it's more important than ever before. How do you orchestrate everything? It's more and more composability, composable experiences. Yeah, you need to get your ducks in a row. And there's not one system that covers it all. Why would you want that? That would be rigid. So make sure that you fill in those layers and you have a composable agentic stack.
So, Frans, now that we understand the layers, let's talk about what companies actually do with this. If a company wants to start building their agentic stack today, where should they begin? What's the first layer to get right?
I often joke, half joke, your stack is a mess and probably it's close to perfect. What do I mean? I'm not confused. Yeah, I mean it's... we often think we have to change everything and it has to be perfect. It's never perfect because everything is in flux, everything works, changes, customers change their behavior. So where should you start? This was another reason for creating this agentic stack, because we see that around about 90% of companies are using AI agents, but only 23 use it in production. And we're not even talking about those guys that, use it maybe completely disconnected from your stack. So you need to have some kind of governance architecture and say, okay, this should plug into that, retrieve data from there. This is the solid customer data we are allowed to use, compliance-wise, governance-wise, and then link that to your agents. So I think we're still in a mode where everybody's trying to get their heads around AI and what is it doing. But I think pretty soon we're getting in a situation where, we have to architect it and make sure we orchestrate all those things. So a lot of companies are not there yet, I would say.
How do you decide what stays deterministic and rule-based versus what becomes probabilistic and AI-driven?
Well, it's pretty simple. If you really want to make sure it always happens like this or that, if then else, it's deterministic. And what you see is that 30% of companies say, you know what? We do replace SaaS with AI, and that's mostly more in the personalization area. There you need personalized content. That's LLM. That's probabilistic. Oh man, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I had to flip it. Yeah, sorry.
Perfect. So this is mostly how you can make that distinction, and still within probabilistic, you have to put your guardrails in there, make sure no profanity, blah blah, etc. is in your emails, in your communications. Your assets are correct, but there you don't mind if it tunes in, taps into the moment, real time, contextual, relevant. That's where you want to have more probabilistic than deterministic. Is that
Yeah,
helping?
yeah. It makes sense when you know. It really makes sense. Like one thing that stood out to me in your post was the distinction between systems of record and systems of context. Let's dig into that.
Yes.
You describe system of context as answering, how should we act right now? Can you give a concrete example of what that looks like in practice?
Systems of context are AI agents, agentic, mostly probabilistic. This is where you use the core deterministic data, customer data, PII, the core messaging, core assets, brand assets. And then from there, you start looking at, okay, how can I make this relevant? What does this customer right now need? And that's the context. And that's becoming very important. And a very important element from context is intent. What is the client trying to solve right now, right here, and how can we help there? So that's where you see, that probabilistic really kicking in.
Many companies have invested heavily in their systems of record. How do they layer AI on top without breaking what already works?
Oh, I love that question. Don't change what already works. Only optimize it when you can, when you need. Don't replace anything if you don't need to. I mean, you need all your free time or resources to figure out what works in terms of AI, in terms of other types of configurations. So, I think that's a very good move to make sure that your deterministic layer is working. And I think it might be so that you need to get the basics in place in your deterministic layer. And this is your customer data and your brand data. There's one graph in the super graphic where it really shows where that the first two use cases, most important ones for LLMs and agentic, are customer data and brand assets. And that makes a ton of sense. You need to know who you're talking to, customer data, and you need to know what you're saying, content, assets. And I think the core of everything is probably having two repositories. Virtually, it doesn't have to be literally. One is your data for customers, and the other one is your brand expressions, your content. Based on that, you will have a bunch of agents picking from that and then being contextual relevant.
I think you're onto something because I think there's a lot of companies that like just do this completely wrong. So, but hopefully they'll listen to what you have to say because that makes sense.
We'll see. Future will tell. The thing is more that we try to solve things always from a data and technology perspective. But if you think about the customer data and the brand data, the brand information content, then companies start to become human in the sense that those are the two elements to create a dialogue. And we need to be in dialogue with our customers because that's, I think, maybe underestimated. But AI pushes us to become more human as a brand, more in dialogue. Before, with deterministic, we could just send messages, create automation flows, and bombard people. Now, you won't show up pretty in ChatGPT if you ask if a customer, one of your customers, asks, okay, which is a better product? So we have to go beyond sending messages and telling, I'm the best brand, I'm the best product. And you have to really become an expert and explain, listen, this is really important. This is what's
Mm,
working.
yeah.
I understand you. I see you. I feel you as a customer. Right now, you need this. You're walking there. You're doing that. You're eating such and so. Why don't you use this? It will be even better. And that's brands have to become experts. They were, but they were just sending. And right now, it's a dialogue. So we go from a monologue into a dialogue situation. It's in that sense groundbreaking, I think. But maybe it's the thin air over here that makes me think like this.
I don't think so, Frans. It makes totally sense. I I really hope that more businesses start approaching it this way, rather than how you see most businesses approach it right now. Yeah. Your model shows
Well,
different.
sorry, I want to tap into that. We should not underestimate the power shift that's happening. If you look at ChatGPT and the the agents of customers, where customers themselves can go agentic and look at products and compare them, see pricing and how it fits them. This is a huge democratization power shift towards the customer. Brands can no longer afford to say, oh, I will just send you messages I will send you the stuff I want you to hear. I want you to ask me. If you look at frequently asked questions, it's normally the questions I want you, dear customer, to ask me. Yeah, that's no longer the case with ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity. It turns and quickly. So let's see where this goes. Also, you see this happening with AGO last 2 years, or SEO, however you want to call it. It changed dramatically, and it will still.
Yeah. Your model shows different setups for enterprise, mid-market, and small businesses. Um,
Yes.
that got me a bit curious. Who's actually best positioned to get this right first, and why?
Well, smaller companies normally are, I'm not saying startups, but they're more agile. They have the agility to set up agents. So this is what you see happening. They use this stuff a lot. They don't build how do you say big stacks, and that is what I wanted to express in this model, where enterprise, they have big IT teams, so they can structure this. They have to structure this, and what I showed in my model mainly is that, yeah, smaller companies probably have smaller stacks. This is what I see in my data. And they don't need everything, but they have to be agile about it. They will probably experiment a lot more. And they don't need a whole host of systems of record. And between you and me, so I think you will broadcast this and it will not longer be between you and me. But, the first CRM for small companies is Excel or Google Sheets.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And from there, you can start doing agentic stuff. I'm now not promoting Google Sheets as a CRM. That's not what I'm saying. But this is how we growth hack. And, let's face it, if that's what's happening, that's okay. But maybe you make a next move to a system of record, which isn't a gigantic enterprise, but an official SaaS subscribed tool. And I think that is what you see happening.
But it's quite peculiar, though, because I think that you still see today that, uh, it's the enterprise companies, like enterprise size companies, that pour money into AI and just have a lot of AI projects. And I'm like, why? You haven't thought it through, right? Uh,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's more of a panic attack, and I don't blame them. I don't judge them. But yeah, you see that we see with our stack data and stack research that outperformers dare to say, yes, we are experimenting with AI, but we haven't figured it out yet. So let's not use it. Let's keep playing until we find something that works. And then it's a turbo booster on your stack, on your experiences that you deliver. So yeah, you have to show a little bit of discipline and self-control before you launch it. And this is another thing. I think this is a bit of a concept, but immature companies, what we see, literally on a level from 1 to 5 in maturity level, the lower levels, they externalize. They believe that if we have a tool, if we have AI, some people even say AI is our strategy. How can it be? Your customer is your strategy, I hope. So, and they go completely relying on software or on AI. It will solve everything. It will not. That's the pure hype. In the hype cycle, you believe everything is external. It works for you. Whereas the outperformers, they go internally and say, that's all good. But you know what? There are only 5 use cases where we make money from, 80% of our revenue. Let's make those really, really good. And if we can use AI, we'll definitely do. But now it's a lot simpler. So they're not boiling the ocean. They just razor sharp, razor focused. And then suddenly AI projects make a ton of sense.
Let's wrap up by looking ahead, Frans. True end-to-end integration is still rare. What needs to happen for that to change?
It's not a purpose in itself to connect all the data, all the systems, to have a perfect customer journey, because some journeys are really mature in your company, other ones are tested, tried, some are scaling. So I think there are different stages where you need to be very conscious of what should we integrate or not. But because if you integrate everything with everything, it's becoming a mess and you're always too late. So I think that is a very important lesson to learn. So integration, make sure you do it in a smart way. And make sure you also clean it up once, you don't need a customer journey and all the systems and data behind it anymore. That's what I would say in terms of integration end to end.
Well, I think that wraps it up this time for the Agentic
Thank
Stack.
you.
Frans, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I would like to wish you safe travels back home. Yeah. Anything to add?
No, nothing from my end. So I wish you safe travels back to your place. And thanks for having me again. Up to the next one.
I just want to include this at the end because this time it proved to be a real hassle to maintain the cellular coverage and all, but I hope that anyone's watching or listening can appreciate the content still. But anyway, thank you for this time, Frans. See you soon.
Thank you too.